On Jazz Nightly with Jim, and we got another Vibes player on the line right now who's going to be performing at Jazz Fest in Sioux Falls on Saturday afternoon. From Omaha, on the line, Steve Raybine. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
Good. We're on the statewide network, as we always are. You're being heard throughout the state of South Dakota and beyond our border, and also on the web tonight. And we welcome you up to Sioux Falls at Jazz Fest on Saturday afternoon on the second stage at 3 o'clock. I'll be introducing you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Now, you're down in Omaha, right?
Correct.
How's the weather down there? I imagine quite warm as it is up here.
It's a little steamy up here, down here.
It has been the last few days. Well, you're a fine Vibes player. You've been on the scene for many years. You've worked with some great people along the way. I'm interested in knowing a little bit about your background, where you're from, and where did you go to high school?
Oh, well, I'm from Wisconsin, and I'm from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, actually, and my high school was Oshkosh High School. It's now Oshkosh West High School.
Oshkosh Bagosh. I used to live in those parts. I worked in radio in Manitowoc many years ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Yeah. Nice area.
That's
now,
very pretty.
Yeah, it is. The Fox River and all of that.
Yeah.
I always ask my guests what they were listening to when you were a kid and when you were a teenager. What kind of music were you listening to? Were you into the rock and roll thing, or were you listening to jazz early on?
I started listening. Well, I was always into rock music, but I really started listening to jazz when I was about in 6th or 7th grade. However old you are, maybe around 12. I was first really captivated by the music of Dave Brubeck. My drum set teacher at that time loved the Time Out album by Brubeck. So by the time I had my own jazz group, a little quartet in 7th grade, we were already playing Take Five and Blue Rondo a la Turk. And so I was, the Brubeck thing started pretty early for me. And from there, I heard you were just playing some Milt Jackson. And I love the Modern Jazz Quartet. I was listening to them already, probably in middle school sometime, into early high school, and then also, because I'm a vibraphonist, I got really interested in Gary Burton. So
yeah.
Those are three of the more contemporary bands at that time in the jazz idiom that I listened to. But I was also heavily into the Beatles and all the rock bands of the '60s and things of that nature. And my dad listened to a lot of big band music at home, so that was playing in our house all the time.
So you got into it fairly early, by junior high school or so, into jazz. Yeah. Now you went to University of Wisconsin-Madison and also University of Iowa, right?
Well, I did my undergraduate, my bachelor's of music at Eastman School of Music in New York, and then I did my master's at University of Wisconsin-Madison. You're correct, and then I did my doctorate at the University of Iowa.
So you're Dr. Raybine.
Yes, but don't tell anybody. It's
All
a
right.
secret.
All right. Well, of course, the Eastman School of Music in Rochester is one of the best music schools in the country. There's no doubt about it. It's one of the most prestigious. You know everything about the history of the Vibes. I just played Milt Jackson.
Yeah.
How would you differentiate these different players, like Lionel Hampton, from Red Norvo to Milt Jackson to Cal Tjader to Gary Burton? These styles are very different. But to the untrained ear, we don't know exactly how different. How would you describe, like, Hampton from Jackson, Tjader to Burton?
Well, Hampton's going to be more swing band, more the the archetypical but the prominent vibraphonist of the swing era, with the Goodman band. He plays the two mallet style. They call that horn style improvisation, where you play like a saxophonist or a trumpeter on the vibraphone. A little later on, and through the bebop era, comes Milt Jackson, who becomes a real harmonically adventurous and sophisticated bebop jazz vibraphonist. So he kind of takes the harmonic parameter of jazz to a new plateau, kind of similar to what Parker and Gillespie and Monk were doing. So I think of Hampton. You know, he was kind of a hybrid drummer and vibraphonist, a very significant vibraphonist. But then it gets more into that really, challenging bebop style of jazz with Milt Jackson. Then I think you mentioned Gary Burton.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And Jader. Mm-hmm.
Oh, and Jader. Okay, well, Jader is interesting in that he really kind of was one of the signature people with Latin jazz. Very melodic player, very talented. I also like a lot of Latin music. You'll hear some original Latin tunes in my set. It's the kind of style of music I really like to write. So maybe Jader will be thinking fondly of me somewhere when I play those. And with Gary, I actually studied with Gary Burton for a while. And then he was more like the four-mallet pianistic style of improviser, where you have this kind of intricate contrapuntal approach to jazz improvisation. You play like a pianist, but it's kind of an integration of piano / really advanced horn-style improvisation. Very deep harmonic thinker, really a brilliant improviser. But I was going to say with Milt, you've got this really great blues feeling that, is kind of rooted in his early youth in the black churches with kind of the gospel style, which permeated a lot of his improvisational style. I mean, just really nuanced playing.
Where does Red Norvo fit in all of this?
Well, Red Norvo also is quite a talented guy. The interesting thing about Red Norvo is that I don't know how many people know this, but he was really quite talented on the xylophone. He goes back a little bit where he's improvising pretty adventurously on the xylophone, and then he made a transition into the vibraphone. And I think for a while he worked with his wife Mildred Bailey, if my memory serves me correctly.
Yeah, she was a very well known singer in the 30s and 40s, and died before her time, an untimely death. They were married. Yeah. Right.
But I mean, he actually ended up playing some four mallet stuff, not just two mallet stuff. He's actually quite a gifted player in his own right. So, I mean, you mentioned 4 or 5 really signature vibraphonists throughout the history of jazz. All have made a lasting impact within that, their own specific style. They're all kind of on the Mount Rushmore of jazz vibraphone playing.
Are there some players who are greatly overlooked or completely underrated today? Emil Richards played for George Shearing for a long time. Is he overlooked, do you think?
I don't know much about Emil Richards playing. He was a studio musician in California when I was there, when I was a younger kid. But he was more into the studio realm. So I didn't hear him play a lot. I'm sure he played a lot. We didn't kind of walk in the same circles. So, there's always going to be on every instrument unheralded players that are very talented, and for one reason or another, they may not come into the kind of prominence that they hope they would, or, they thought that might happen for them. So, I mean, I've been around the block a long enough time to know that there are gifted people on every instrument that would say, they're still waiting for that golden nugget of accolade, the accolades that they might want to have attained.
Yeah, indeed. Now, you've played with some great people. I'm looking at your bio here. You've played with Dizzy Gillespie. You've played with Brubeck. You played with Brubeck?
I did. And what's interesting, I did 2 things. I played with Brubeck, And I also, when I was in my 20s, my band opened for Brubeck at Royce Hall at USC. And when I was at the Berklee College of Music during my high school years, his youngest son, Danny, was in my drum class. So,
is that right?
There's a lot of Brubeck stuff throughout my whole...
Dan has a new release out with his quartet that I've been playing. You've also worked with Ed Shaughnessy of the Tonight Show band. What was that like?
Yeah, I did.
What was that like?
It was great. Ed's he's a very generous musician. He had a great personality, great swinging drummer. For all the years you heard him play on the Tonight Show. Just a real love for jazz music. He was sponsored, I believe, by Ludwig Drums. I'm also an endorsee of the Ludwig Drum Company. Musser Vibes, actually.
You've also backed Karen Allison, Jack Jones, and Michael Feinstein. What was it like to work with them?
Karen Allison, that was an interesting concert I played with her. There was a period of one of her releases. She worked with Gary Burton, and so one of the concerts the concert I did with her, I had to play all of Burton's vibe parts. So let's just say I worked a lot preparing for that concert, and it went well. I think the drummer told me Burton would have been pretty darn pleased with how well I did, and Michael Feinstein was a really cool guy. He liked the way I played, so he just kind of opened up some stuff for me during his show and kind of let me play the vibes. That was pretty neat. And I remember Jack Jones I worked with in college, and he liked what I was doing. He brought me out front and let me kind of do my thing. So all of these people you mentioned were very kind to me, very generous musicians.
Now, you were in L.A. for a period in the 70s doing studio work and gigging in clubs. What was it like?
Right.
What was it like during that period?
Well, that was a very interesting time. It was a pretty creative time. I had my own contemporary jazz, I guess you'd say jazz fusion group at the time. It was called Oracle, not O-R-A, but A-U-R-A-C-L-E. We were on Chrysalis Records. And we toured. We did a lot on the West Coast. We did some East Coast, and a couple tours of Europe. Most notably at the Montreux Jazz Festival. I would say those were very progressive jazz days in Los Angeles. I played a lot of gigs at Dante's Club. The Golden Bear, we played. The Baked Potato, we practically had a weekly gig there. So there was just a lot of sharing of ideas amongst my peers at that time.
I've heard that the L.A. jazz scene has really declined in recent years. That there are very few places for jazz musicians to get gigs.
That could be true. I've heard that the live music scene there is definitely not what it used to be. I can't verify that, but I have heard that.
How did you get to Omaha?
Well, that's a good question.
Turn right.
Well, pardon me?
Turn right or left, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, turn right at California or go south from Wisconsin. Actually, I got to Omaha. I was doing my doctorate, but in Iowa City, and I really came to Omaha to be with the woman that I married, my wife Beth, and she's a genetic counselor, and she had a job at the Children's Hospital here, so that's how I ended up here. And then I started making a name for myself here. I played a lot in the Omaha Symphony, and then I started doing jazz gigs, and then I taught at the university here. And that's I kind of been just integrated myself into the system here.
How is the jazz scene down there in Omaha these days?
I think it's pretty good. I mean, it could always be better. I think people would always say we wish there were more venues. There are some, kind of waxes and wanes. Sometimes it's better than others. But there's a lot of good players here.
Do they have a jazz station down there that plays a lot of jazz on the radio?
The only jazz they have is their public radio station. It's KIOS radio, 91.5 down here, FM.
Yeah, that's about where it's at. Just public radio. That's about all the jazz is going to be on the radio. No commercial radio stations.
Right.
On Saturday, the other members of your band, who is going to be with you?
Okay. On saxophone, my son David Raybine will be playing alto sax and soprano sax, and I have a guitarist. His name is Jeff Scheffler, and my bass player's name is Steve Gomez, and my drummer's name is Mike DeLuca.
And what kind of material can the folks expect? Straight ahead, contemporary, some Latin? What kind of things?
Well, my music is kind of an amalgamation of different, influences. I would say that you will hear a couple really neat Latin pieces, originals. I'm going to throw a couple standards in, and one, Brubeck one. Let my son David play Take 5, which I think most people will like. Then I'm going to do, basically the rest are going to be my originals, which are kind of, what would I say? They're very melodic, they're funky, they're kind of R&B influenced, but there's always they're always a jazz underpinning. So the majority of my repertoire will be kind of that nature.
Well, it's my understanding we're going to be recording it. There's an outfit that records jazz concerts across the state in the Sioux Falls area. Ragtime Studios, it's called. So we're going to record it for playback later here on my program. So
great!
I want to remind all the people in the Sioux Falls area, Jazz Fest is free Thursday through Saturday night. It's all free entertainment, and Steve's band will be on the second stage Saturday at 3 o'clock, and I'll be introducing him. Steve, I hope to meet you on Saturday. I'm looking forward to meeting you. And
we better meet. You're going to introduce me, so I'm hoping we meet.
Yeah, I think we probably will. Well, listen, Steve, thank you for joining me tonight, and I will see you on Saturday, okay?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And let's hope the weather isn't, too overly humid.
Yeah, we're supposed to be Saturday, mid-80s, maybe mid-90s. It's going to be warm.
Oh, mid-90s?
Well, it could be mid-90s, yeah.
Okay, well, I better drink a lot of water.
Bring lots of water. Okay. Steve, have a safe trip up to Sioux Falls on Saturday, okay?
Thanks for having me on your show, Jim.
Okay, thanks for joining me tonight.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Steve Raybine, vibist from Omaha. Steve and his band will be performing Saturday afternoon at Jazz Fest, Yankton Trail Park in Sioux Falls. That's right off Minnesota Avenue. And Steve and his band will be on the second stage at 3 p.m. And again, it's all free. Just show up and hear the wonderful vibes of Steve Raybine and his band at Jazz Fest Saturday afternoon. Thanks to Steve for joining me tonight.